welcome to the first episode of T-Levels Explained with me, Lewis-Humphrey, the Industry Manager for Construction at City and Guilds. I'm joined by Healey, the Training Manager at Guinness Properties, part of the Guinness Partnership, and also Vice Chair for our Onsite Construction Employer Industry Board, where today we will discuss the forthcoming on-site construction T-levels this September 2021.
Just give us a little bit of insight around your involvement with T-levels and why, you've come to sort of working with us so far.
I started working with the City and Guilds mainly because I found that this was a great opportunity to address the skills shortage and put in an extra layer of education that kind of challenged the status quo in terms of where we needed to go and whether degree routes were the only options, apprenticeships were the only options, and to broaden our talent pool within industry. Within the field that we're working in, it's getting more and more difficult to match an apprenticeship with our on-the-job training requirements, because obviously we're property maintenance. So the T-levels are another way for us to explore other avenues to develop the skills within the sector, but also giving young people an alternative route and really supporting their ability to get the academic knowledge whilst being able to build the confidence within the constraints and controls and support of a college or a further education provider.
So would you say that you feel that there is a recognised gap in the market for this specific qualification within your organisation?
I do, and where originally the T-levels were being pitched was that gap between people being pushed down the apprenticeship route because they didn't like education, academics, or were good with the hands, and that academic route of, you're a high achiever, you must go down the degree route. And there was a whole gap in the middle that was for young people that actually didn't want to do either or didn't know where the place was. The other great thing for construction and our sector is that it's making it easier to identify different pathways within construction and to get a feel of different things and to try it, really delve into the industry before they make a commitment in terms of what the higher education or the further apprenticeship needs to be. Mm-hmm. And I think there is a huge gap in the industry in terms of its attraction base. And therefore, because there's such a big gap, there's a huge gap in our talent pool. We're not diverse. We attract the same people year in and year out. And hopefully, bridging this gap with an additional qualification will help us to diversify our applicants and really promote the benefits of construction in terms of career development and obviously our communities and the industry as a whole.
So from what you're saying is that we can open this up, as you said, to a more diverse talent pool and recognise and sort of appeal to a wider reaching audience. Where would you say you would hope to sort of open this out to? Because as you said, or as we all know, construction is typically aimed at a certain type of learner. And what are you hoping, what sort of groups would you like to attract towards your organisation?
Young people tend to come into construction because they want to build things. If you go to any interview within construction and you speak to the young people coming through, what they want to do is they want to build. They're good with their hands. They don't like school on the whole, and they want to be more practical. And through experience, that's been the repeated feedback that we've had. But actually, what we're looking for is not. We need those people, absolutely. We do build things. We need people to be able to put one on top of the other and to really push construction forward. But actually, there's a whole breadth and depth of career opportunities from our professional pathways, from our trade pathways to our support services, all those routes. And construction is not known for that. We're known for being trade only. But how do we get those jobs to the start? How do we go through the tender process? How do we support our tradespeople on site? And these T-levels hopefully will open that window, as well as you know, we see people going through the degree route and it's absolutely viable, but what they've got is a lot of education and very little on-site experience, and that's years of education at a senior level. So academically they're absolutely brilliant, but then it's a huge gap then moving into site with that academic knowledge and putting it into practice. So hopefully what this will do is strengthen that process by giving people a real foundation of what is construction, what are the different pathways, and actually what do I need to be a strong candidate within the construction sector, because it is continuously developing and it is continuously moving, and it's a fantastic industry, but we only attract the same people year in and year out, and we're missing so much more talent. But actually what we're also missing is the ability to share with everybody what a brilliant industry it is, how supported it is, and how much education and career progression that you can get. I might be waffling a bit now.
It's fine, don't worry, it's absolutely fine. Do you think with having the compulsory placement embedded into the qualification, that actually is going to be more appealing and actually benefit the learner? How do you feel that's going to work going forward?
100% it's going to benefit the learner. Without question, the learner is going to be able to take that academic knowledge and place it in industry and understand it and be able to build confidence and really map that learning to make them a better learner and to succeed. However, I do think that we need to be mindful as to the commitment to employers, and because the industry is so movable and it's spread across the country, it's making sure that we can manage that so that the employer can support the candidate and the candidate gets a good experience. But definitely the placement and depth of placement is definitely going to improve the experience for the learner, without question.
Fantastic. One of the comments that I've heard, which I find really, really interesting, is that T levels actually might appeal to more girls, to more female learners, because being a slightly more academic qualification, they won't see it as totally practical, because construction is always perceived historically as being a male orientated industry, and now actually having a more academic qualification, it may appeal to a more female audience. Would you agree with that, or do you say it's all learners?
I'd like to see the figures after it's run. I'd like to see how we're promoting it and what that looks like. It'd be great to jump forward and see the impact, because we can only guess at this stage. But
yeah,
you are right. It's we do still get a small proportion of females wanting to go into trade for the same reasons as the boys. But actually, when you look at colleges and A levels, proportionately, there are large numbers of females that go on to academic studies. So hopefully, by bridging that gap, we can become more attractive to females within the industry, so that they can see what our industry is actually made up of, and it isn't just bricks and mortar.
No, definitely. Do you foresee that this is going to assist the Guinness partnership with regards to its talent pool and recruitment going forward?
Absolutely. I mean, there's two reasons for that. One, it's the right thing to do as an employer to get involved in T levels. Any employer within our local communities, it's about educating our next generation. We won't exist as organisations unless we've got strong talent pools coming in, and that comes from multiple different directions. But also for us within us, it's like it's mine, but also like property maintenance, it is inherently now extremely difficult to grow our own skills. We are part of the construction sector, but we do not build. We're there after the fact, and we're there to maintain, and we're there to ensure that our stock and our investments remain in investments, and therefore the range of work our apprentices get is becoming less and less. So the T levels are a fantastic bridging gap for us. It gives them the basic knowledge of the industry and then allows us to map over. So, for example, because we don't do gas, we don't hold the contracts internally for our gas works. It's all external. We can no longer grow our own plumbers. But if you look at the T level, we are able to map the T level into one, into supporting work experience in local colleges, so you support your local economy. But two, we give them on that 2 days a week or 300 hours. We give them enough knowledge about our industry that supports the qualification, but then on the back of that, we can then bridge that gap with internal training or mapping it into the property maintenance qualification, or we'll look at senior level qualifications, site management, your level 3s, your level 4s. It gives us a broader option, which the apprenticeship standards no longer do for property maintenance. I never thought I'd say that because, as you know, I'm a massive advocate for apprenticeships. But there are multiple gaps. So there is not one solution for every problem within construction. So the more solutions I've got, the less problems I have.
I do like that expression, grow your own plumber. That's such a lovely expression.
Plant and grow.
And do you foresee that the T levels can lead to an apprenticeship? Because obviously there's this big discussion now around progression. Do you think that that's going to be, a good pathway?
Any pathway into construction is a good pathway.
Brilliant.
That's what we've got to say.
That's really, really good. I like that.
And it is any pathway, and there is really no one-stop shop for a career in construction. So you can choose the traditional leave school, go into an apprenticeship, do your level 2, your level 3, and then move up the ladder in a linear process, or you can go down the academic route. So T levels are another pathway into construction. And we've got to remember, not everybody's ready for employment when they leave school. They've not made their mind up. They're not mature enough, or they're not confident enough, and it's right for them to stay in education. And what the T levels will do will allow them to stay in education and to broaden the learning whilst building the confidence up in the sector. And then at 18, they can make a decision. Do they then go on to higher education, either through a higher apprenticeship, which I definitely advocate, or do they go on to do a degree and stay in education, or do they look at some of the trade apprenticeships, especially if you've done the Onsite construction T level that gives you a broad aspect of multiple trades? They're then able to map that into a trade apprenticeship. So your joinery, your plumbing, or your M&E, your plastering, your painting and decorating. But what the T level does is provides choice where we didn't have choice before. You either went onto studies or you went onto an apprenticeship.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point that you've made there about a lot of students or a lot of learners aren't always necessarily ready for an apprenticeship, because actually that's straight into the workplace from school.
Yeah.
And actually a lot of them do struggle with that because it's 4 days at work and 1 day at college, or however it's managed. And I think that can be quite difficult for some learners, whereas exactly as you've said, it's a gentler, more easier way into the industry. What do you think that this new grant that the government is now offered of £1,000 per learner for each placement, do you think that that's going to help incentivise employers?
Yeah, I think we can all be incentivised by the pound. We'll all do a little bit more if there's a little bit of an extra pound at the end of it. But I think what we've got to remember is, to get the right experience for a learner, they've got to be in the right environment. And as an employer, we are committing to a lot of hours of training whilst we are still spending against our apprenticeship levy as well. So there is a huge commitment, and rightly so, to train the next generation through multiple pathways. But what you also got to remember that learners within that organisation, not to perform to make a difference to the business, they're there to make a difference to themselves. So from our perspective, we're not actually benefiting from them being there in terms of productivity, because that's not why they're there. They're there to learn and grow. So we need to invest our resource at that stage to give them that learning and to give them that time and support and structure. Now that does come at a cost to an employer. And rightly or wrongly, there is a cost attached to that, but also, it's our responsibility to make sure they are trained within our organisations, that they've had the mandatory training, the additional training requirements that keep them safe and knowledgeable. They also need the resources to work from. They need the PPE. They might need their office equipment. And so there is a cost to the employer in that respect. So what I would say is, from an employer's point of view, we would always train and we would always invest through our experience programs. However, to incentivise it just strengthens that programme and makes it more accessible to employers.
Yeah, and I think it's also instilling some confidence in the employer and actually adding value into what the employer's contributing into that qualification. And it's very interesting you should say all that, you know, about having the experience and the PPE and what have you. And I think a lot of the time when students come out and they do a work placement, it's just a week. And it's like, well, what was that? By the time they got there, they're out. Whereas this is, you know, much longer experience. And I think it's just wholly valuable. And I'm really just going to finish up and just ask you the big sort of $1 million question, concerns around the T levels. What would you say, you know, the one thing that I'm just worried about that? And I think, you know, we need to be honest on this.
It's a new qualification. And it's been pushed out in times that were uncertain, and so there's always going to be questions unanswered. But for me, it's about educating every layer in terms of education. So our schools, our parents, our training providers on what is a T level and where is the pathway. Although I've said, you know, it leads to multiple pathways within construction, what does that actually look like for somebody that doesn't know which way they want to go? And that isn't clear at the minute. And another area is T levels. When they originally came out, it was about that bridging the gap between academic and apprenticeships, and it was very much tailored towards going into higher education. And now what we're saying is we can go into an apprenticeship with it, which is fantastic and, you know, the right thing to do. We just need to be really clear on where the T level at a level 3 will fit into apprenticeships that are potentially at a lower level in the long run, to make sure that we sell the right information to that learner without then thinking they're going backwards, because they're not going backwards. So it is about, you know, what is the story and where are they going to go, and have they got the right information.
I think that, again, that's perfectly sort of obvious with a lot of people we're talking to. You know, it is about progression, and it is, you know, where does that fit in with the apprenticeship? And I think it's not just from the employer. I think from the centres, you know, the sort of education side of it, and also the learners, and even, you know, parents as well are like, well, where does this all fit? And I think, you know, clarity around that is really going to sort of determine the success of this qualification without a shadow of a doubt. Well, I just want to say thank you so much for your time today. It's always a pleasure talking to you. And yeah, brilliant.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for listening to this episode of T Levels Explained. Follow our SoundCloud channel to stay up to date with all our podcasts. If you want to find out more about T Levels, please visit www.cityandguilds.com/T Levels.